We are here because we are dedicated to helping the entire CrossFit community. Determined to elevate coaches, box owners, athletes, and everything in between, we believe that this mission will begin right here, right now. While this time and this goal begins with you, our hope is that you take this fire ignited within you and weave it into your own life with the same unrelenting passion to give those you have the privilege of coming in contact with the best hour of their day.
Big day for us, Fern. Look at us. Look at us.
Friday.
Well, it's Friday for us. I don't know about for the listeners, but I suppose not everyone listens on the day the episode is released. But what I'm referring to is we're like a boy band right now. For those watching this on YouTube, we have a YouTube channel, Best Hour of Their Day.
And just so that we're clear on this, if in fact we were a boy band, I would clearly be Justin Timberlake and you would be the obscure backup singer that people kind of remember their face but have no idea what that person's name is.
I'm a Joey Fatone.
Yeah, for sure. You actually kind of look like Joey Fatone. Like,
it took me a long time to realize Fatone was Fat One.
Yeah.
That was probably, immigrants coming into Ellis Island and they're like Fat One. Right? And then over the years they were just like, Fatone, we're gonna change that. We're not. but I can see myself, and you know what? Guess what? Justin Timberlake, sure, still a musician, still probably got an incredibly attractive wife, but Joey Fatone showing up on the Food Network, consistent work. He's always got jobs offered to him. That's me, Fern. That's me.
Wait, so are you saying Fat One is better than JT?
I was trying to make that argument, and I know that's a little silly.
That's a weak ass argument. Yeah.
But I'm just saying,
there's definitely listeners who are like, I know who JT is based on those initials, and I still don't know who the hell Joey Fatone is.
My point is, Joey Fatone is doing all right in this world.
Yeah, he's doing fine.
So
just like you, when we part ways, when we break up one day, you'll be all right.
Well, that's the thing. I'm a survivor. I'm always here. You can't count me out, and I think I am like the Joey.
Just won't go away. You're like that booger that I can't ever get off my finger. Like it's always there all the time.
There.
No matter how much I try to flick it off my finger.
But I mean, look at us mashing CrossFit Rife beanies.
That's right, bro.
The key to a good beanie is the shape of it, and I think you nailed it.
Which is interesting because these are hand woven by me.
You made each one of these like my bar mitzvah when my grandma made all my yarmulkes to give out.
Yep. Done.
What a great Jewish grandma.
I sit around and I just make blankets and other things.
I can see you knitting.
Afghans.
Speaking of, I know it's late if you're listening to this, but it is the last night of Hanukkah. Are you sending me? Are all 8 of my presents going to arrive today?
They didn't get there yet? I'm
assuming, you set it up, so big day, 8th night, all at once. It's or one big one. Sometimes your parents, when you're a Jewish kid, like they trick you, like, hey, I didn't get you 8, but I got you one really big one.
I got you 8 pictures of my middle finger.
I can make it into like a menorah. I can see. We could do that for next year. We could do a middle finger menorah from Fern.
It's just each one of them is a candle holder.
Yeah, each one holds one candle. We didn't light the candles. Roz is talking about doing more Jewish and overall spiritual things once the baby's born. I'm like, why start now? Why are we going to do this? Let's just feed this thing, and we'll figure out
just make sure he makes it through. Make sure she makes it through the day.
Cheers! We're both drinking coffee. We are in sync today. Oh, no pun intended, right there.
Right. Oh, that was good.
But anyway, for those listening, if you're unaware, we do currently now put up.
That's a very redundant statement, by the way. Currently now
at this moment, we put up the podcast on YouTube again. Back in the day, we were just dropping the audio on YouTube. We kind of stopped, but we have a great new girl, Katie. Shout out to Katie, who is helping us with our social media and
best teammate I've had since we started this business.
Oh, she's my favorite. She's my favorite teammate. She quickly, just based on the fact that she was nice to me, she rose above you. And
she was trying. I'm not.
she puts our episodes so you get to see us. You get to see us in our CrossFit Rife beanies if you want. We have like matching blue outfits on at the same time.
It's kind of true.
So check that out. Subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. Katie also drops little snippets from each episode. So maybe you want to hear something. I would say Joe Rogan-esque. That's where I got that idea. I listen to some of his full podcast, but a lot of time I just head over to YouTube and catch the snippets of, where he, is talking to somebody. Of course.
Speaking of which, have you checked it out since they switched over to Spotify?
I have.
So I like it way better because both the audio and visual is in the same location, right? So like the visual version is YouTube, or used to be for Joe Rogan Experience, but in Spotify, it's all the same one. So I can either watch it or listen to it, but either way, it's the same thing, and I can close it out. I can minimize it. Like, I think it's way better there. And you can fast forward through the ads by ad. So like, as you're fast forwarding through it, it'll tell you fast forwarding through the Body by Jay ad that nobody wants to buy any from that shit.
Wow,
so
I paid a lot of money for that ad. Did I tell you about Body by Jay? How it was Rogue Fitness's one of their first clients?
No, we should hear that story for the 1 million.
And by the way, I just want to say, I'm going to drop an F-bomb. Fuck off, Luke, and fuck off, Christian, for making fun of me on social media. I know you listen to this, and I'm throwing a big fuck off. You get my middle finger menorah next year. So, truth be told, I love the fact that as we are growing, our listeners, our followers on Instagram are getting behind some of our more fun endeavors, such as Fern Does Fran and goofing on us.
I think I'm going to try to do that prior to leaving on Tuesday.
Where are you going? You going on vacation?
Yeah, I forgot to tell you about that. So you're going to have to hold down the fort.
Oh, great! I did.
No, we're going to an undisclosed location where we will do much, social distancing and wearing our masks all the way around.
I'm sure you're going to wear your mask. Yep. The entire way there. But I was thinking I might throw down with you, just a little team support.
I got to get in a good headspace for that.
Okay, let's talk about maybe next Monday. Oh yeah, because it'll be around the holidays. So prior to the holiday.
Well, we're leaving on Tuesday, so I'm not doing it coming off of like 5 days of doing nothing. So
let's do it on Monday.
All right, that means I gotta get into some stuff tomorrow.
Let's do it on Monday. We'll record it. I'll take off Sunday, and by the time people are listening to this episode, we've already done it, and we've both been under 230 at this point.
You're definitely not doing under 230.
But anyway, going back to what I was saying, yeah, you can check it out, and yeah, I enjoy that about Joe Rogan. I don't think I get the ads because I pay for Spotify, I guess.
I don't even know how that works anymore. I just like one day I was just like, why isn't this on iTunes? And I was like, oh yeah, because it's December.
I love listening to Joe Rogan. I can listen to him talk about just about anything. He was on another comic, Ari Shaffir.
Yep.
And he's got another podcast called The Skeptic Tank. And I listened to like 4 hours of them talking over the last week. He is the history's greatest interviewer. I throw him. I have my.
I know you like Howard Stern.
Yeah, I like Howard Stern. I like him, and I actually like a guy named Sean Evans from Hot Ones.
Yeah.
So the three of them, I think, all bring something unique. I think Joe Rogan can just speak on so many things, and he's very open-minded.
The breadth of his knowledge is astounding.
Yeah, he'll have a guest on 3 years ago and then quote something.
I'm like, what?
And then what I like about Howard Stern is just he, digs deep and gets very into the weeds and the psychology of stuff. And then Sean Evans on Hot Ones just asks amazing, obscure questions. There's lots of compilations out there of some of his guests saying like, how'd you know that? And I think those three people really influenced us on this podcast. And they're a lot of fun to listen to. Speaking of, you and I both read a book recently, Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights.
Fantastic book.
I just downloaded the book that he references in there called The Greatest Salesman.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm gonna give that a go. Check that out. I think it's very The Secret-esque. The book The Secret by Rhonda Byrne.
I've not read it, but I know of it.
I'm a big proponent of The Secret. I think, look, you and I founded Best Hour of Their Day nearly 2 years ago. We launched Affiliate U, and it was one of those things where we put it out there, and then Affiliate U has taken off. We've got some other new projects coming out, and I think a lot of that is just living by your passion, doing what you love, and doing it with someone that challenges you in a good way. But then, B.
I thought you were going to say doing it with somebody that you love.
I was thinking about that. I was thinking about saying that.
Don't ever say that.
And then B, just putting it out there in the world, like, hey, we're going to do this, and it's going to be successful. It's just having a positive attitude.
Yeah, particularly in these times, and which it's interesting because I was just on a not a individual phone call with Eric Rosa, but like on a group phone call within people within the company, and they were talking about just yes, they're putting a ton of resources and time and emphasis behind like making sure they take care of both the affiliates and the team and employees and all that stuff. But I appreciated the fact that while they're saying they're like, hey, we're here to help, but they also were like, and you should own your own life, basically. They're like, you should own your own future, take control of the things you have to take control of. And in doing so, you will get taken care of. And I think that's probably a mindset shift that I really would want to push on a lot of affiliates, is that you have to own your own life. Like, nobody's coming to save you. Like, nobody's coming to save me here at CrossFit Rife, or any of that stuff. And what I found over the years is that if I'm pushing hard enough, and if I'm trying to find solutions, and if I've basically resorted to the fact that I'm not ever going to let this thing die, kind of what you and I have experienced is that things begin to, and I kind of hate this because I don't actually think that's how it works. In air quotes, like things will manifest themselves, but I don't think that's how it works. I think you just work your ass off, and then eventually you hit is really how it works. It's just like, it's like baseball. If you swing the bat enough times, you're going to hit. And that's all you're really looking for, right? But you got to get up and you got to swing the bat. You have to walk up to the plate every single day. You got to grab the bat and you got to start swinging. And, I think that's super important, particularly right now when when it seems that the world is ending every single day on a more catastrophic level than the day before,
I 100% agree with you. And I think, people look at me and like, oh, you own boxes and this happened and this happened and this happened. It's like, each of those was individual. I owned my box, I sold it, and I was really like, I don't know what I'm going to do for money. Yes, I made money, I sold the box, but at that point, a nutrition company arose. And then it was like, okay, that's great, we're doing well here. And at that point, I get on seminar staff. And at that point, I worked for a couple other businesses. And then it wasn't long ago, a few months ago, that I was like, I don't have anything right now. I'm not making any money. We're in the midst of a pandemic. I wind up teaming up with a few people, and then you and I wind up, finalizing Affiliate University that we had been working on. And, it's you just have to put in the work. I had a conversation with my father, who is rarely impressed by me. He's much more impressed by my younger sister, who's smarter and
your business partner.
I don't know that he's impressed by
He's
me,
like, I wish. I'm surprised he hasn't called me and be like, I want you to be my son.
Yeah. I mean, if I had a nickel for every time he said, why can't you be more like Ferg? But he said to me, he's like, it's impressive how you consistently reinvent yourself. He was like, I was a dentist for 40 years and that's all I knew. And I said, I don't think I'm reinventing myself. Like, everything I've ever done has been in this fitness world, but it's just, hey, you got to just keep trucking along, keep moving ahead. And I know we need to get to our topic, but we had a post at this point a couple of weeks ago where one of us said something like, a 12-hour day is nothing to be proud of. And somebody went at us, like dropped some F-bombs at. It was probably the most attacked I felt from our people that follow us on Instagram. And in my mind, I laughed at it because I'm like, this response that you're giving us is exactly why you don't agree with us. Like, oh, what about this? And what about like making excuses? Like, you're responsible for you, dude. Say it's your boss wanting more hours from you. Say it's this, say it's that. Like, ultimately, you're in charge of yourself. The reason you and I don't feel that way is because if we had a boss that did that to us, we would figure out a solution and we would come up with a new plan. And
it's also if it also that's again, people misinterpreted what that statement means. It's not at all to say that you should not be working 12 hours. Sometimes you're gonna have to work 16, 18 hours. I still do that
on
a semi-regular basis, and but it's doing the things that I want to do because there's an end that there's an end I'm trying to get to, or something I'm trying to accomplish, so it's not this whole like you should never work long hours. You're gonna have to. There's no other way. There's like the one of the greatest misconceptions in all of the self-help books is like the 4-hour work week. You're like, oh, he only works 4 hours. I'm like, no, read the book. That's not at all what he's saying. Right?
Yeah,
that dude works a ton. But it's about being both. It's like both being efficient and working hard at the same time. Because if you are one of these people that's just always getting into stuff, all you're really doing is repurposing your time. I'm doing something else. I work 4 hours on this thing and I work 6 hours on this thing. But if you follow me around all day, you're like, this is exhausting. Like, how do you even function? So that's that. You do need to work hard. That is cost of entry. There is no other way. There's no secret. There's no shortcut. There's no, special answer to get your affiliate up and running. It's like work your ass off, do the work on the right things so that you can get return. And then your time starts to freeze up and then you start working on other things. So that is what we were referring to when we're talking about like working 12-hour days is a badge of honor. If you're an affiliate owner and you're coaching 10 classes a day, that is not a badge of honor. Right. That means like collectively you and us have like failed to come up with a solution to get you out of that. Right. Because it's not appropriate as an affiliate owner.
Well, and what I would throw on there is, I joked to my father that I want to retire at 30 or 40. He's like, you keep saying that. I'm like, but I feel retired because to me, retirement isn't I want to sit on my ass all day and do nothing. It's that I only want to work on things I enjoy working on.
Right.
And I'll work 20 hours a day on Affiliate U. I mean, I'll be sitting in this desk for the next.
That's not true at all.
I'm saying I would potentially.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to hold you that. You said it on the air now, right?
It's
so
like,
you have to work more than 3 hours a day now is my point.
It's like contractile potential. I have the potential to work 12 hours a day.
I have the potential to work 12 hours a day. I just don't feel the need to work 12 hours a day.
But I enjoy it. I mean, there are days you and I have 3-4 calls with some of the members, and each of those calls then requires another hour or two of work, and I love it. Okay. Let's get to our topic. We've been talking a lot about programming, recent episodes about understanding intensity, about how to preserve the stimulus. Let's just talk about a little nuancy stuff. Easy things. You mentioned it on the last episode, low time reps. When we talk scaling for preserving the stimulus, most often low time reps. And if I ask you why, you're going to give me the right answer. Why are those the three things we tend to scale?
Well, because they're the most obvious ones, number one. Like when I read a workout, like those are the things. I've got rep schemes, I've got movements, and I potentially have weight. But if it's a body weight movement or gymnastics movement or monostructural movement, then the load is me. But outside of that, those are the three things that I have, like reload, reps, time. And those are the variables for power output and therefore intensity, right? Force times distance over time equals average power, which is equal to intensity. So those are the three obvious ones. But again, we talk about this in level 1. There are all sorts of other things that I can scale as well. And there's 7 things that we would cover in there. Some of them obvious, some of them not so obvious.
But let's dive into that. I knew you would eventually get the right answer. It took you a little longer than I expected, but you got there.
Thanks, I appreciate it. I studied.
Low time reps, yes, obviously the most readily accessible. Change the weight on the bar, change how long you're working out, change the number of reps. But like you said, load, force, time, obviously time, reps, often distance, right? The more reps you're doing, the further you're moving. So load, time, and reps have the most direct action on power output or intensity, force, distance, and time. So yeah, those are why we tend to go there. But I also think that's kind of like low-hanging fruit. So let's dive into the other aspects that we could scale. And I really want to take a moment as we get into this to talk about gymnastic movements, because I think that's potentially the most overlooked scaling of movement and also to help people improve at CrossFit.
Okay, so if you want to go there, then I think the most obvious place to go is to the other variable. Probably the most overlooked variable is function, right? What is the function of this movement? And when we say function, we're talking about a host of things. So we're talking about push versus pull, hip mediated versus shoulder mediated, right? So whether I'm pushing or pulling, whether this is a shoulder mediated movement, something like the pull up, or a hip mediated movement like a deadlift, you're looking at planes of movement, right? So like, is this frontal plane? Is it sagittal plane? Is it transverse? Is there rotational stuff going on there? So when we're talking about function, first thing we have to identify is like, what is the function of this movement? Is it an upper body pull or push? Is it a lower body pull or push? What plane is this movement happening in? And then I can start to dissect that and come up with a whole host of potential scaling options in the event that somebody needs that, whether they're just physically incapable of doing the movement, or they need to like work on the skill aspect of it because they don't have the strength, or it's an injury of some sort. So that is probably the most reasonable or practical place to go from a gymnastics standpoint. Is like, what is the function of the gymnastics movement? And then I can start to come up with a ton of stuff.
So let's use an example. The most obvious one being pull-ups.
Right, so I have an upper body pull, for the pull up specifically is in the frontal plane, and we use frontal plane a little bit differently in the medical community. And just to clear this up, frontal plane in the medical community rotates with the body. So if the person is laying down, that changes where the frontal plane is. But in CrossFit, what we're talking about is this imaginary line that dissects my athlete into front and back halves. If I was looking at somebody from a profile or from the side at 90 degrees, typically what we would say is frontal plane is right about midfoot that would dissect them in half. And when we're talking about frontal plane, this is balance of the athlete in addition to balance of external load as well. So,
yeah, I think, oftentimes one of the pitfalls we talk about when it comes to scaling gymnastic movements is always doing the same thing. For most people, it looks like banded, ring rows, or jumping pull-ups. And all three of those are good scaling options. I think first thing we need to address is, what's the stimulus of the pull-ups in the workout?
Right.
So
is it high volume? Is it low volume? Is it weighted? Another one that we haven't even referenced, and I just thought of it because we're doing this tomorrow, is how many people are doing chin-ups?
Right.
And, palms facing you, not in a pronated position of the hands, but in a supinated position of the hands, palms up. If I was laying on the floor, or the anatomical position, right? Palms forward. So that is another way to change that. And you'd be shocked how many people will be able to do pull-ups by changing it to a chin up, specifically the females. They'll get a little bit better with the chin up than they will with the pull-up. Now there's some challenges with the chin up, which is like probably not doing a ton of kipping, if any. Most people don't have anything that would resemble that kind of shoulder mobility to be in a chin up and have that, that crazy, external rotation, and then have full opening and closing of the shoulder. But if they don't have the strength to do a pull up, that's probably where we should start anyway. So like, let's develop some of that strength. And if they can use their own body weight, why not? Let's start there. Like it's a pull up. Yes, it's a chin up, but the function is pulling myself in a vertical plane in the frontal plane from, or at least my chin, from below the object to above the object.
Yeah, and I think the truth is you're only limited by your creativity. I've seen bands, I've seen ring rows, I've seen jumping, I've seen people set a barbell on J-hooks, and you go from seated to pulling up, so you're using your legs a little bit. You can have a spotter to grab your feet. There's so many options. I think it's important that the coach looks at the stimulus of the workout. In other words, Angie that has 100 pull-ups is probably meant to be a different scaling option than Fran that has 45, or a workout that has multiple rounds of 5 like Cindy, where you're staying unbroken. So you really need to address the actual stimulus of that workout.
The other thing to consider with pull-ups specifically, and we'll stick there because it's one of the number one things, at least in my affiliate over whatever it is, 11 years, almost every female comes in the door who wants a pull-up. And a lot of times what we'll neglect is, we should do all of this, but pulling in the sagittal plane is really, really beneficial. So think bent over rows, barbell, dumbbell, kettlebell, single arm, double arm, like all of these things. Just so remove the pull-up portion of it and just like, what is the function that we're trying to develop here by doing a pull-up? And it is upper back strength. So other things that I can do that would develop upper back strength that might be more appropriate than getting up there and doing a pull-up every single time. Yes, we are changing the modality at this point. It is going from gymnastics to weightlifting. I get it. However, you have to think about the context of the athlete. What is appropriate for them right now? And again, when we're scaling, it's almost never the same thing all the time. So it's totally appropriate in some instances to change the modality in order to stay with the function and challenge the athlete in order to get them progression. Because the scaling, and this is probably where most people, if you really evaluate a lot of scaling within affiliates, scaling should progress the athlete towards the end state. And a lot of times it is not. It's just a substitute that allows them to maintain the movement pattern in as strict a pattern as possible, but is then not actually progressing them forward. So it is totally appropriate sometimes. It's totally appropriate sometimes to have an athlete change from a gymnastics to a weightlifting if that is ultimately going to progress them forward because they lack strength in the scenario like the pull-up.
I think that gets overlooked way too often. You're right. It just becomes A, cookie cutter, and B, well, what can I do really quick in this moment to get them to hit that stimulus, right? If they're even thinking that far in advance. But they have to think another layer on there of, okay, will this scaling not only hit the stimulus, but get people closer to the actual movement of pull-ups? I think
there's a couple other options in there if you want to get super creative. I'm sure you've seen it, like the banded pull-up with a PVC pipe, where they go from either a seated or a standing position. It's just a banded pull down. So exact same thing, but now I get to add, an appropriate load on there.
Obviously, I use that a lot for toes to bar. I'll pull the athletes away from the rig, lie them on the floor, because a lot of times we'll do candlesticks, but it's like you're not actually firing your lats like we need to on a toes to bar. I would say, go ahead.
So the other thing is, and if you've got, if you want to put an equipment budget or in there, like we have two of them here, which is Rogue sells them. I don't believe they make them. I think it's a resale through Rogue, but it's basically a cable attachment. They have like the Uber fancy ones for Rogue, and they have like the cheap ones that are basically just like straps we can hang up there, which is just like a cable machine. And that's a great substitute because you can load those up pretty heavy as long as you're not really exceeding the weight of the athlete. They can pull some serious weight, anywhere 40, 50, 60, 90 pounds, depending on the athlete, and really work on that upper body pulling strength.
Yeah, I think another avenue of scaling that gets overlooked is actually just scaling the reps of gymnastic movements. So, for example, if we're doing Fran, oftentimes we think load time reps, but we have athletes that can do pull-ups, but if they tried to do 21, they'd wind up going 5 sets of 4 or whatever. So maybe you keep the load at 65, 95, but you scale the reps of the pull-ups down. So instead of 21, 15, 9, it looks more like 12, 9, 6.
Or even 9, 6, 3.
Right. And then maybe you do X amount of pull-ups and then you finish with ring rows or the other movement. But again, going back to what you said, if we're always scaling pull-ups and they're never actually doing them, when are they going to get better at them?
Right. And I think that, so with regard to that specific scenario, one of the things that we really harp here at CrossFit Rife is if you've got a skill, and this was always Pat Sherwood's thing, is like a cat and a dog don't make a giraffe.
Yeah.
Right. Like
especially when we talk about double unders.
Right. Especially when we talk about double unders. But if you've got a skill, and this is what I'll tell people, like if you've got a skill, we're doing the skill. The immediate default scaling option from there is volume. Right. So like if you got pull-ups, I don't want to do jumping pull-ups. It's not helping you. Let's do more pull-ups. Right. But maybe just less volume relative to the workout. But if you got, it's a scale backwards. That's not progression. And again, I really want to enforce this, like when scaling, like is what I am delivering to the athlete promoting progression? And if it's not, we should rethink it.
And let's just, before we wrap up, let's just dive into double unders. I think it's worth addressing. For so long, it was, okay, you're not doing double unders, double, triple, quadruple single unders. And like you've said, a dog and a giraffe, don't make an elephant or whatever the quote was. But, and here's where I would always get so frustrated. I'm like, okay, typically, this isn't an absolute, but if someone doesn't have double unders, they tend to be a little less fit. Right? I mean, that's part of fitness. Can you balance accuracy, agility, and coordination? If you don't have double unders, you're lacking in those 4 domains. So now we're saying, hey, you're a little less fit than the people in my class that can do double unders, but I'm going to make you spend twice as long, 3 times as long, 4 times as long here, even though if you're struggling here, you're probably moving slower everywhere else in this workout. So
well, there's multiple problems with that too. So we had a young lady who I finished up with yesterday. So she's going through her foundations, and in the foundations we do like a variation of kind of like Filthy 50. It's like their third one. It's kind of like where we really test their ability to deal with some level of intensity, and it ends with jump rope. And she was like, all right, so we get to the end and it's 30 double unders, or 30 jump rope is the way I brief it. And she's like, well, I don't have double unders. So she said, am I just going to do 60 single unders? And I said, no, you're going to do probably 45. So think about this. If I take somebody who's got double unders, how long does 30 double unders take? 20 seconds?
15, 20 seconds, yeah.
Yeah, 20 seconds on the long end. And then how long does 60 double unders take?
30 to 40 seconds.
Right. So probably almost double the time frame. So somebody who doesn't have a skill already is struggling with that. And now I'm going to put them immediately behind the power curve with regard to the time domain because of this arbitrary number. And I get where people got this. This was just the scaling option, right? Because I think the thought process was like people struggle with jumping. Most people don't struggle with double unders. They struggle with the power hop aspect of the double under. So if you are going to, and the timing, but the first thing you have to have before the timing is the ability to just do a power hop, right? So that higher hop of a double under. And so when we scale, we typically like, how long would it take me to do this number of double unders? And then I'll translate, okay, how long would it take me to do, or how many single unders can I get in there and do it that way? And it's typically like an additional, depending on the volume, roughly 50% more than the double under number, right? So if it's 30, then I'd go 45. If it's 50, I go 75. And it matches up fairly well. Like that math doesn't work all the way out as you push it out to the right, obviously. But like for most of CrossFit workouts, like that's a pretty safe calculation to keep people on time, right? That's why 400 and 500 meter row, 400 meter row and 500 meter row, it's not because the meters are the same. It's because it's roughly the same time domain.
Time domain, right.
So
I would throw in there a couple other methods that I like to use are, as people are, you have 2 levels. You have people that are kind of getting them, and then you have people that are getting them but they're inefficient. So for both of those, you can go, like you just said, okay, well, 60 double unders should take you 30 seconds, so I want you to attempt double unders for 30 seconds. You're not counting this, you're scaling the workout, but at least you're going to get better. And then
that's an option. I don't love that one. Here's the reason why. Well, I'll use it, right? So it's not out of the question, but it's no different than an AMRAP. If it's just attempt for 30 seconds, I've given them the ability to mail it in. I would prefer to make it more of a priority task within the workout, which is like we're going to figure out how many double unders you can do, even if it's like a single double single or a single double or whatever that combination looks like for them. And the number might be 8. Like let's just make it up. Like it doesn't matter. It might be 8. And I'm just like, cool, your number's 8, but you got to get 8 because I want you to focus on the skill, not just mail it in for 30 seconds and then move it on, because inevitably that is absolutely what's going to happen. They're just going to mail it in because they're just like, all right, I just got to be here for 30 seconds and then I get the fuck out of here.
Or they wind up degrading back to singles. But I agree with you, but that is my next level. So for example, we had a workout earlier this week that was 10 rounds of 8 push press, 24 doubles, rest 30 seconds. And for some of the people that I coached, it was 12 double unders. It was 8 double unders, because not only do they mess up, so I want to keep them in that same time domain, but they're so inefficient that 8 double unders for them, even if they're done faster, exhausts them at a different way than 24 does. I mean, 24 double unders for you, for me, for anyone that's somewhat proficient, not a big deal. But 8 double unders where you're jumping as high as you can and holding your breath, like that's exhausting.
Now, this, I think, is a separate conversation, but it's worth touching on because largely this is a problem because people are not teaching people how to jump rope. And I use the term jumping rope because I'm intentionally not using the term do double unders. I'm not concerned with teaching them how to do double unders. If I can teach them how to jump rope and how to develop timing, accuracy, coordination, agility, all of these things, jumping rope eventually becomes very easy, right? Like teaching them how to develop a power hop. Like you can practice a ton of stuff with regard to double unders and never touch a rope. or like penguin hops, or is what some people call them. Like, but I mean, doing backwards singles, doing in and outs with your feet, forward, back, 360 turns, like all of these things that require like a lot of concentration for them to learn to control the rope and their jump speed and all of these things. So I can develop kind of like those neurological components, is what we talk about in the 10 general physical skills. You need to help them develop the neurological components of working with a jump rope and do it absent of the double under. Right. So there's a ton of ways to jump. Right. We could have a whole thing on that. But you could also take that into account when I'm doing some scaling options. Like, is this neurologically challenging for them to do this aspect with a jump rope? If we check the box, yes, then it's an appropriate skill.
And maybe we'll have an episode on that. And as well, the other movement to consider is the muscle up. I mean, when you and I started CrossFit, the scaling was 4 pull-ups, 4 dips. There's your muscle up. And what we've done is worked on both of the strength aspects, the pull, the dip, but we've completely disregarded the skill component, working on a false grip, working on a transition, all of that. So, and for a lot of people,
and that movement is the genesis of Pat Sherwood's comment about cat and a dog don't make a giraffe. He's like, you can do both of these all day, but if you leave out the middle part, which is what we see very regularly at the level 1, which is the transition and the false grip, it doesn't matter how many pull-ups you can do. Obviously, there's some people that don't matter. They got it. They're the person who they're like, oh, just do a muscle up like this. I'm like, yes. However, that's no way to make friends. So just don't tell people you did it on your first try. So
but how many times have you seen this over the last 10 years at a level 1? Someone raises their hands. I have 10 pull-ups. I have 10 dips. I've never done a muscle up. 20 minutes later, they have their first. And not only do they have their first, they basically have muscle ups forever, because all they needed to do was, pull the rings to my sternum. Do a sit-up. Keep them tight. Super simple. And
so then my scaling options that I dial up for those people should have those aspects of the movement in it, whether it's a seated muscle up or a banded muscle up or the banded ring muscle up variation. I mean, like, just, this is what I tell the new coaches and interns here. I'm like, if you spend 5 minutes on YouTube, just Google muscle up substitutions, and you'll come up with a whole host of progressions and substitute scaling options for muscle ups that you have probably never seen before. I mean, there's a lot. Just pick a movement, but just put scaling options for this or substitutions. You're going to learn something. 5 minutes. That's all it takes.
Yeah. And that's true for everything involved in coaching. I mean, there's no excuses this day and age with YouTube, with podcasts like Best Hour of Their Day. I mean, it's there for you. It's a matter of how much do you care. And that's what we talk about with a lot of our clients in Affiliate University. That's what separates them. And that's why their boxes are moving on to the next level. It just comes down to care and how much time and effort you're willing to put into it. So great stuff, talking about scaling some other movements to preserve the stimulus, to maximize intensity, and then also to progress athletes to the full movement. As always, besthouroftheirday@gmail.com if you have questions. Best Hour of Their Day on Instagram. We've got a couple of new projects, new endeavors on their way, so be on the lookout for that. And again, one more time, just want to say fuck you to Christian and fuck you to Luke directly for making fun of me on social media.
So you never miss an episode of the podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel and on all major podcasting platforms at Best Hour of Their Day. Thank you so much for tuning in and for being a part of the best hour of our day. See you next time.